Hello everyone. Today we got a truly extraordinary tale lined up for you. The story of Oskar Schindler, a German businessman who risked it all to save more than 1,200 Jewish lives during the Holocaust. From his early business ventures to the creation of the famed Schindler's List, we'll delve into the life of a man who defied all expectations. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Oskar Schindler was born on April 28, 1908, in Zwittau, Moravia, then a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and now in the Czech Republic. His father, Hans Schindler, was a farm machinery manufacturer, and his mother, Louisa Schindler, was a homemaker. The Schindlers were ethnic Germans and devout Catholics, living in a region that had a diverse mix of German and Slavic residents. Oskar was the firstborn, followed by a sister named Elfriede. Oskar Schindler was a born entrepreneur, showing an early interest in business. His father's work in farm machinery gave him an initial insight into the world of business and manufacturing. After finishing school, he worked in various trades, including sales jobs and technical roles. He eventually found employment as a sales manager for a Moravian electric company. Schindler was a charismatic and affable man, traits that made him a successful salesperson. He was also a keen observer of political trends. As the 1930s wore on and Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party rose to power in Germany, Schindler became a member of the Nazi Party as well as the Abwehr, the German military intelligence. Some accounts suggest that he may have initially joined these organizations more out of opportunism than ideology. His focus appeared to be on leveraging the networks and opportunities these affiliations could offer for his business interests. In 1939, after the German annexation of Czechoslovakia, Schindler moved to Krakow, Poland, with the intention of profiting from the German invasion and occupation. He took over a factory that produced enamelware and later ammunition for the German army. At this point, he was still largely guided by a sense of opportunism rather than humanitarian concerns. It was only as the true nature of the war and the Holocaust unfolded that Schindler underwent a significant transformation, turning from an opportunist businessperson into a savior for hundreds of Jewish lives. As the 1930s drew to a close, Europe was a continent on the brink. Germany, under the authoritarian rule of Adolf Hitler and his Nazi Party, had openly flouted international laws, annexing Austria in the Anschluss of 1938 and later seizing the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. The policy of appeasement led by British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had failed to curb Hitler's territorial ambitions. Anti-Semitic laws and actions, like Kristallnacht in 1938, sent a clear message about the extreme racial policies the Nazis were willing to pursue. Public opinion in Germany was largely shaped by Nazi propaganda, emphasizing a return to national greatness and scapegoating minorities, especially Jews, for the nation's problems. The military had been built up in direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles, and a sense of nationalistic fervor pervaded the German populace. Against this backdrop, Second World War began with Germany's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939. Using his contacts within the Nazi regime and the funds he had amassed through various ventures, Schindler acquired an enamelware factory in Krakow, Poland, shortly after the city fell to German forces. The factory was previously owned by Jewish businessmen who had no choice but to sell it. Schindler named it Deutsche Enamelwarenfabrik, or German Enamelware Factory in English. Schindler's factory initially produced pots, pans, and other enamelware products, but as the war progressed, it also began to manufacture ammunition. This transition was strategic. By categorizing his factory as essential to the war effort, Schindler could justify requests for more labor and resources. His factory became a sort of economic microcosm within the war-torn environment, well-equipped and organized, but run largely on the exploitation of cheap Jewish labor. Despite this exploitation, working conditions in Schindler's factory were notably better than in the ghettos or concentration camps. Schindler provided relatively better treatment to his Jewish workers, a fact that would become increasingly significant as the horrors of the Holocaust became more apparent. As Second World War progressed and the Nazi regime intensified its genocidal campaign against the Jews, Oskar Schindler found himself at a moral crossroads. What had initially begun as a venture for profit started taking on a different meaning for him. Realizing the gravity of the situation and the impending doom faced by his Jewish workers, Schindler made a life-altering decision. He would do whatever it took to save as many of them as possible. Schindler's List, as it came to be known, was a document listing the names of Jewish workers deemed essential to the war effort, and therefore spared from deportation and almost certain death in concentration or extermination camps. The creation of the list was an extremely risky endeavor. Schindler used his influence, bribes, and unerring charm to convince Nazi officials that these workers were indispensable to his factory and, by extension, to the war effort. The act of saving hundreds of lives was not something Schindler did alone. He had help most notably from Itzhak Sturm, a Jewish accountant and one of Schindler's close associates. Sturm was instrumental in preparing the list, often adding names of people who had no skills that would technically qualify them as essential, but needed saving nonetheless. There are numerous accounts of Schindler going to great lengths to protect his workers. One such incident occurred when a group of his workers were mistakenly deported to Auschwitz. Schindler managed to secure their release by personally traveling to the extermination camp and negotiating with the camp officials, offering bribes and other inducements. In another instance, when SS officers arrived at his factory to execute a group of workers who were caught making unauthorized enamelware for themselves, Schindler intervened. He convinced the officers that executing these skilled workers would severely affect productivity, and instead proposed to punish them by paying fines on their behalf. Such interventions were fraught with risk, but Schindler, driven by a newfound moral compass, continued to gamble with his life for the sake of others. The result was extraordinary. Schindler saved the lives of approximately 1,200 Jews, each one a testament to one man's ability to change and to challenge the overwhelming forces of history and inhumanity. After the war ended, Oskar Schindler found himself in a radically changed landscape. His association with the Nazi Party made it impossible for him to continue living in Europe as he once had. Moving initially to Regensburg in Germany and later to Argentina, Schindler tried to restart his life. Schindler's financial difficulties were severe, most of his business ventures failed, and became increasingly reliant on aid. Interestingly, much of the help came from those he had saved during the Holocaust. The Schindler Juden, as they were known, did not forget his sacrifices. Many sent him money, gifts, and letters of support to help him through his challenging times. Oskar Schindler died on October 9, 1974 in Hildesheim, Germany. Although he was initially buried in Frankfurt, at his request, his remains were later transferred to Jerusalem. Schindler was buried on Mount Zion, the only member of the Nazi Party to be honored in this way. Schindler has been remembered in various ways. Schools, streets, and buildings have been named after him, and several museums and memorials ensure his story is not forgotten. But perhaps most telling of all is the phrase often used to summarize his legacy: "He who saves one life saves the world entire." And that's the incredible tale of Oskar Schindler, a man whose courage shines as a beacon of humanity in dark times. If you found this story inspiring, hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more.